Hey guys, what's up? My name is Rishan and today we are going to be building the remote control boat part 2. Today we're going to be doing the electronic circuitry of this boat. So what you're going to need is two motors, two 9-volt batteries, one RC receiver, one RC transmitter. You're also going to need cables and a 9-volt cable. Now, these are all widely available in places like Lamington Road. For your cables, you're going to always want two of one color and two of another color, just so you can stay organized and know exactly which color cables are positive and which color cables are negative. I would recommend two red and two black. Two red for positive and two black for negative. Any color is fine. So these are the 9-volt cables that I'm telling you about, and this is what we're going to be using in the first part of this video. So first of all, what you want to do is you want to take a screwdriver. Any screwdriver is fine. For this video, I'm just using electric screwdriver to make things move a bit faster. Make sure your screwdriver is a Phillips head screwdriver. That's the most common type. You'll probably find it anywhere. So now you want to take your screwdriver and unscrew the screws on both the transmitter and the receiver. So here's just a clip of me unscrewing the transmitter screws. Okay, now you want to do the same for the receiver. The transmitter will usually have two or none, and the receiver will have anywhere from from 4 to up to 10, which is the max I've ever seen. There will be two only for the battery cables, and then the others will be for motors or lights or any type of electronic part that you want to insert. Now that you've unscrewed all of the screws, you want to start out with those 9-volt cables that we have, and you want to attach them into the positive and negative side. So as you can see, for this, we're going to be putting the black side into negative and the red side into positive. Remember, black is always negative and red is always positive, or the other color included is always positive. Once you've inserted the cable, you just want to screw it in. Just like that, really simple. And now you want to do the same after inserting the red cable into the positive side. Once you've secured this, your power delivery for the transmitter is complete. Now, let's move on to the receiver. You want to make sure your cables are tightened in well, otherwise they can fall off and break at any moment. Moving on to the receiver. Repeat the same process, but this time be more careful to see which one is for the battery and which ones are for the motor. They're usually not labeled very carefully, so you're just going to have to check it out. Or read a bit careful, read the labels that are written. There'll probably be a plus for the red cable and a minus for the black. Just insert it in and screw it down. Okay, now that we screwed that in, part 1 of building the electronic circuitry for this boat is complete. Now let's move on to part 2, which will be connecting in all the cables for the motors. So I'm using blue for positive and black for negative. I'd strip so you always want to strip the ends of the cable so that there's a part of it that's exposed, and this part you will be attaching onto the motor and the other and into the receiver. Now my cables were stripped to be too big, so there was too much of the cable being exposed. So what I had done is just folded it in half and then attached it in, so that it would fit in better. Otherwise, there would be a lot of exposed cable hanging out, which could cause a short circuit. This black one was especially difficult to fold in half, so I used the assistance of any heavy object that I had lying around. In this case, I used a cover for all the screwed bits. As you can see, it was not fitting in very well. So I had to use something pretty heavy lying around and just smash it down a bit. This is really important, as you do not want these cables coming loose when your boat is in the middle of a pool or the middle of a tub. I mean, tub is fine honestly, but in the middle of a pool, you can't have your boat just turning itself off, right? So you want to be careful while screwing these screws in. now you're going to start in 3, 2, 1. As you can see, I've attached in the positive side of both cables, and I'm finally working on the final negative cable for the motors. Now I want, now this is an extremely important part when working with any type of electronic cables. You always want your workstation to be organized. All the positive cables together and all the negative cables together. Although in this case, I did keep the motor 1 cables together and the motor 2 cables together. So one set of black and red blue and one set of black and blue were both individually kept on the sides. Now, when you work in an organized workspace, you rarely forget anything. You always know what has to be done next and what should be done at the right time. As you can see, I've inserted the final cable and I'm just going to screw it in. Now, while screwing it in, keep it in mind that you do not want to over tighten it or under tighten it. This is not that complicated. Just screw it until you feel like a lot of resistance and then stop. Don't try to go against that resistance. That will only end up spoiling or damaging the screw. Now that we finished part 2, let's move on to part 3, connecting the motors to the cables. Now you want to make sure your cables are attached in well. I cannot express this enough. Like, just hold it up and shake it a bit. Or keep your hand under so that it doesn't fall and get damaged. Just shake it a bit and then you'll know that if it falls out, then you need to redo that. But if it doesn't, then you're golden. Okay, now that you can see I've separated all my cables, we're going to first begin with motor 1. Now this is pretty important. Now most motors will come with one red and one black side. So like a red dot and a black dot. And what you want to do is, suppose you're plugging the blue cable into the blue or red dot of the cable and the black into the black dot, you need to remember that the second motor also needs to be plugged in the same way. Like, which means that suppose on motor 1, you've plugged blue into red and black into black. On motor 2, you also need to plug blue into red and black into black. You cannot do the opposite. Otherwise, all the buttons will just become non-functional, which means that suppose you press forward, your boat will start turning in one direction. Suppose you press right, your boat will start turning in another direction. Maybe you press back, but it starts moving forward. All these issues can occur, so be careful while wiring it. As you can see, I've just plugged the blue cable into the red side of the motor, and I'm going to do the same for the black. As you've seen, I've plugged in both the cables into the motors and now we're good. Like, I've plugged the black cable into the black side of motor 1 and 2 and the blue cables into the red part of motors 1 and 2. All the cabling for the motor is now complete. Moving on to part 3, the final part, just clipping on the batteries. It's going to be really simple. Unfortunately, my camera did die for this part. So what you're going to need to do is, you see that the blue connector, you're going to take the blue connector and you want to snap the batteries into the blue connector. So the small side goes into the big side for the blue connector of the batteries, and the big side goes into the small side of the battery. I hope you understand. Thanks for watching.